Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast over Equinoxe television. We're live from Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Babla Jonathan. In our top story, mystery surrounds the death of a civil servant in Cameroon after alleged treatment by an unlicensed practitioner. Her body was found in a river in Akak in the central region of Cameroon 20 days after police arrested the main suspect and intensified investigations into the circumstances of her death. And also in this newscast, 52 days after President Paul Biya left Cameroon, conflicting explanations from 4 senior government officials over his prolonged stay abroad are fueling confusion and intensifying public debate as the government insists the head of state remains firmly in control. Growing numbers of Cameroonians are demanding one clear and consistent explanation from the authorities. Those are top stories. Thank you for joining us. We are Equinoxe Television. We are independent. We are fearless. We are credible. Thank you for trusting us. A 35-year-old employee of the Ministry of Environment, Nature Protection and Sustainable Development has died after allegedly seeking treatment from an unlicensed practitioner in Akak in the central region of Cameroon. Her body was discovered in a river 20 days after police intensified the investigations into the matter after having arrested a suspect. Cedric Chakuto reports.
The lifeless body of Charlotte Mayo, an official at the Ministry of Environment, was found in a river at Akak in the Mefu and Afamba division of the Central region. According to family members, she left the house looking for medical treatment but never returned. It's only days after an intensive search launched by firefighters and gendarme officers that her body could be found in the river. She simply told the children she wasn't feeling well and that she was going to get medical treatment. It was after this that we were informed that her phone number was no longer in service. While feeling uneased, the victim visited a man identified as the Takungang, popularly known as Doctor, to receive treatment. Investigators believe he performed an improvised medical procedure on her despite having no medical qualifications. She went to Mr. Takungang's house where she received further treatment in addition to what she had already received, and since then there has been no trace of her. Mr. Takungang had fled. After the patient died, he allegedly chose to conceal the body instead of notifying the authorities. According to gendarme officers, he was assisted by Dokmo, a taxi driver who allegedly transported the body to the river where it was dumped. After providing this fatal treatment to the victim, he was helped to dispose of the body by Mr. Dokmo Zebaze, the taxi driver with whom they transported the body to the town of Akak. Mr. Dokmo suggested that he dumps the body in the Fumu River where we found the remains 20 days later. The suspects were arrested and are pleading for forgiveness.
Je demande pardon. Je demande pardon. Je demande pardon. Je demande pardon.
Je faisais mon taxi à ramassage. Il m'a expliqué, il est dans une situation.
For the family of the 35-year-old victim, the grieving process can now begin with the relief of recovering her body, tempered by the hope that justice will take its course.
A young Cameroonian social media user, Patrick Menge, has been sentenced to 6 months in prison after being convicted of contempt of the head of state over a social media post following the death of former Senate President Marcel Nyat Jefenji. The ruling has sparked sharp legal debate, with lawyers divided over whether the conviction was justified and renewing calls to safeguard freedom of expression amid ongoing discussions about President Paul Biya's prolonged stay abroad. For me, Armstrong Standard reports.
Patrick Menge has been judged and sentenced to 6 months in prison. He was charged with and found guilty of contempt of the head of state following a social media comment made in the wake of the death of former Senate President Masenyat Njifenji.
Section 152 defines contempt as any means of defamation, abuse, or threat conveyed by gesture, words, or cry uttered in any place open to the public or by any procedure intended to reach the public.
According to Barrister Tamford Richard, contempt as defined under Section 152 of the Cameroon Penal Code is not applicable in the case of Patrick Menge.
Menge, as you mentioned, to me, I strongly disagree with the judgment that was arrived at. I believed it to be an injustice because from the statement that that young guy made, nothing there could be considered as forming ingredients of contempt. He didn't cite the name of any person, and I think every Cameroonian should be free to air his opinion the way he thinks if he does not infringes the penal code.
Barrister Achu Julius, however, argues that the trial and sentencing of Menge under Section 152 of the Cameroon Penal Code cannot be said to be politicized as claimed by some opinions in Cameroon.
Do you mean to tell me that there are no judges that belong to other political parties? What makes you think that the judge that gave the decision is a member of the CPDM? What? You see, you have to be very careful here. The CPDM is a political party and doesn't run the civil service. The civil service is made up of Cameroonians from all walks of life that belong to all political parties, not only the CPDM. So if somebody takes his responsibility to act according to the law as he thinks, as he deems fit, why should you blame the CPDM?
In the light of the president's current controversial and extended stay abroad, both barristers Ashu Julius and Tamford Richard insist on the careful choice of words while also highlighting the fundamental right to freedom of expression.
But what made you feel that he's out of the country for some other reason other than what he himself knows? Why should you prospect or why he's out of the country without you finding out? Without you talking to him or talking to those who matter? Because we have a means of communication. Why not go to the source to get the information before saying it? So you come and say any type of thing that has consequences, you should be ready to bear it.
I think that it is but normal that Cameroonians should be informed, for example, about the whereabouts of the President of the Republic. Outside, maybe for state duties, Cameroonians should know. If the President of the Republic is on vacation, Cameroonians should know. And if the President of the Republic is maybe having medical attention, Cameroonians should know. I don't see how such questioning could amount to maybe contempt to the President of the Republic or trying to silence Cameroonians.
It remains unclear whether the timing of Menge's trial and sentencing is intended to dissuade or intimidate Cameroonians from discussing issues related to the head of state.
52 days after President Paul Biya departed Cameroon, conflicting statements from 4 senior government officials over his prolonged stay abroad are raising fresh questions and deepening public uncertainty. Although the government maintains that the head of state remains fully in charge, the inconsistency in explanations given by the different state authorities is provoking concerns among Cameroonians, as Innocent as a report.
Center of the confusion are 4 senior government figures, all influential members of the ruling CPDM. The director of the civil cabinet at the presidency, Samuel Mvondo Ayolo, says the president is simply on a brief private stay in Europe and continues to exercise his functions from Geneva, Switzerland. On the other hand, the Minister of Communication and Government spokesperson Rene Emmanuel Sadi, a member of the CPDM Central Committee, insists the president's absence is only apparent, dismissing reports about his health and says he remains fully informed and governs remotely. The Minister of Higher Education, Jacques Famendongo, also Secretary for Communication of the CPDM Central Committee, on his part argues that there is no constitutional limit to the president's stay abroad and that there is no vacancy at the top of the state because Paul Biya continues to sign decrees and monitor government business electronically. But Labour and Social Security Minister Gregoire Owona, Vice Secretary General of the CPDM Central Committee, introduced a different explanation. He says President Paul Biya is effectively on annual leave as a worker of the Republic arguing that under the Labour Code, such leave can legally last up to 80 days before it could be considered a forfeiture of office. The differing explanations have triggered widespread reactions among Cameroonians. Mba remarked sarcastically he prefers working from Switzerland. While on annual leave, he is still working. That's great, a hard-working leader. Another Cameroonian, Fidelis, questioned the consistency of the government's communication, saying, the contradictory statements suggest officials are not coordinating among themselves and would otherwise have presented a single coherent explanation. Ntam, another Cameroonian, also pointed to what he considers a contradiction, arguing that if the president is truly on leave, he would not normally be carrying out his official duties, while continuing to work remotely undermines the justification that he is on leave. It is worth mentioning that this is not the first time Communication Minister René Emmanuel Sadi and Higher Education Minister Jacques Famendongo have publicly sent conflicting messages on matters concerning President Paul Biya. One of the most notable incidents was during an interview on Radio France International when René Emmanuel Sadi said President Biya's candidacy for the October 2025 presidential election was 50-50 and would depend on the head of state's personal decision. Shortly afterwards, Jacques Famendongo contacted Radio France International to reject that position, insisting there was no doubt that Paul Biya was the CPDM's designated candidate. The latest contradictory statements over the president's prolonged absence have once again raised questions about the coherence of government communication.
Poor road infrastructure, inadequate access to potable water and irregular electricity supply remain major challenges facing communities across the southwest region of Cameroon. And those concerns are among the findings compiled by community-based liaison officers of the Office of the Public Independent Conciliator of the Southwest region between April and July 2026. And those findings were presented during a review meeting in the Southwest Regional Capital Boya. Rex Afon files in greater details from Boya.
During their time in the field, the community-based liaison officers of the Office of the Public Independent Conciliator for the Southwest region held one-on-one conversations with residents of various communities who shared the challenges they face.
Most of them actually were complaining about the poor nature of their roads. They complained about inadequate lightning, like the street lights, the solar lamps that are going there. So many councils are actually taking it as projects. Most quarters in my municipality does not have. They complain regarding waste management. That is one of the major problems that even throughout the different quarters they were complaining. Absence of garbage collectors collecting cans.
One after another, the liaison officers presented these grassroots concerns to the Public Independent Conciliator during a meeting in Boya.
Mojo is a subdivision with 66 villages, majority of which do not have accessible roads. Just a very small number of villages have dark roads. The traditional council, they complain that the long-lasting political crisis has caused Uguti to be money.
While commending the improved quality and composition of the reports this time around, the Public Independent Conciliator reaffirmed her determination to work harder to ensure that the people of the Southwest region are better served by the local councils.
There has been a marked improvement in the state of services delivery in the local public services in the Southwest region. There has been, because from the reports, lots have been reported. The complaints that I've received, I'm going to contact the mayors and we'll try to see how we can improve on the delivery of services.
This exercise is vital as it provides officials of the office with up-to-date information on developments in the field. The current report covers the period between April and July.
Thanks a bunch, Rex Avon, for those updates. on the challenges faced by communities across the crisis-stricken southwest region of Cameroon. Now, Cameroon has made history at the 23rd Commonwealth Games, with Emmanuel Eseme winning the country's first ever athletics gold medal in the men's 100 meters. The Spring Star has also booked a place in the men's 200 meters semi-finals and remains Cameroon's only medal winner so far as the Games continue until August 2nd. Sportsman Smanjik and Gabriel report.
Away they go, really good start.
Running through torrential rain, Emmanuel Eseme stormed to gold in the men's 100 meters final in a stunning 9.89 seconds. The run did two things. It smashed Atto Boldon's 28-year-old Commonwealth Games record, and it made Eseme Cameroon's first ever athletics gold medalist at the Games. With that time, Eseme now becomes the third fastest African man in history over 100 meters. Only Kenya's Ferdinand Omanyala at 9.77 seconds and South Africa's Akeni Simbine at 9.82 seconds are ahead of him. In the field, Fernand Njomesi Temfak finished 7th in the men's high jump final after bowing out at 2.21 meters. The veteran remains one of Cameroon's greats. He still holds the national record of 2.28 meters set back in 2014. Meanwhile, competing in the long jump at the Glasgow 2026 Commonwealth Games, Raymond Nkwemi narrowly escaped out on a place in the final. Despite the disappointment, he remains focused on the next challenge. But off the track, it has been a tough games for Cameroon as three selected boxers, Futwe Totap Jr., Banguiguna Abeb George, and Binzi Mirel Noel were bad before competition began because of an ongoing governance crisis and lack of recognition for the Feka box by World Boxing. Because of federation issues, Cameroon's delegation was cut to 21 athletes, down from 24. The team is competing in just 4 disciplines: athletics, judo, weightlifting, and parasport. Emmanuel Eseme remains the only medal winner for Cameroon at the 23rd edition of the Commonwealth Games. Cameroon lies 14 on the overall classification table.
Smanjik and Gabriel ending the first part of this Newscast. Talking Point comes up next. Thank you for staying with us in Talking Points. Our guest today is KERNYUY, Mariant BOMNYUY. She's a human rights and, of course, gender rights advocate, member of Stand Up for Cameroon Civil Society platform, and she's joining us to have a conversation with regards to the increasing rate of gender-based violence particularly against women and even children in the Republic of Cameroon ahead of the 2026 Pan-African Women's Day. Thank you for joining us today. First question to you, what's your analysis, what's your reading of the situation as far as gender-based violence is concerned in Cameroon today?
I think when we look at what is happening just this year, we see that the spike in the numbers are crazy for this particular year. Only this year, we are already, in the first 3 months, we had 26 cases. That is almost half of what we had last year. That shows that there's a rapid increase in the gender violence, and it is becoming so predominant. It's becoming a societal problem that we really need to look into, and not just something that we need to put aside and just let it slide back, even though it is slowly being normalized, which is not supposed to be so, because it is a big problem that has to be fixed. It is a fundamental problem that runs very deep, that we need to go right into the sources, sort out these issues and fix them, or else these numbers will keep increasing. And if it keeps increasing, the future generations will see it as a normal thing. And if we don't stop it now, it will continue to increase.
Right. So what are the driving factors of gender-based violence spare the information at your disposal from your analysis, from your reading of the situation? What are the driving factors?
I will start by highlighting our system itself, from their educational system to how children are being raised. In situations where children are raised in a violent home, they tend to think that violence is very normal. We live in a country where violence has been normalized. We see instances where there's police brutality and it is let go, nothing is done about it. We see instances also where marriage, it's becoming a very big problem, where a woman is facing violence at home, but when she goes back to her parents, they tell her, no, you cannot leave your marital home. You have to go back to that. You have to go back to your husband. And also, we've had instances where violence has been normalized as a sign of love in relationships, which you will hear things like love beatings. You will see that they'll say, if your husband does not beat you, that means he does not love you. So this kind of doctrine indoctrinated among kids, among youths, they tend to think that violence is a very normal thing. Also, one other push factor for violence in our community is we have high abuse of substances, which tend to push people who feel superior over others to exercise that dominance, to prove their dominance over other people, leading to a lot of violence.
What do you think about how the authorities are tackling this issue of increasing gender-based violence, notably against women?
The concern of women in a lot of situations are not respected. For example, we can have a situation of a married woman who, at a particular moment, has no interest. Maybe she's tired, she has been working the whole day, she's very tired and she wants to rest. But because the husband feels like, you are my wife and I own you, he will still like to engage with her, and that is violating her consent. And also, because women have been made to understand that men have the final say. If you need to go by what the men say, you need to live in a community where men have the authority and they align with everything that men say. Women grown in that environment, they tend not to have an opinion for themselves, that sometimes they do not even realize the violence that is being inflicted upon them, because they think it is the norm. They do not even know that they are being violated, and that is another major problem. So they are being forced, and we have to go back to our educational system. We need to educate from children to know what is right, what is wrong, what violence means. Because even when we talk about gender-based violence, a lot of people think violence only comes when somebody slaps you. No, it is a series of things. It could be just simple harassment, a woman being insulted, you might be passing on the way and men are insulting you, they try to talk to you, and because you say no, they start calling you slangs. That is already violence. You must not wait until they have been given a slap for it to be termed violence. We have situations where, because a woman doesn't want to do something, they use force and they control how to do it. It must not be sexual, but the fact that she did it without her consent, she did it because she had no other choice, that is already violence. The fact that she is married and she said no, they are supposed to respect her consent, because we still have married women who are being constantly violated in their marriage, and we feel it's normal. And you hear people say things like, "Can a man rape his wife?" That is that to me is a lot of blasphemy.
And we understand from what you're saying that the government has to go to the base, to the roots, to tackle this problem of increasing violence from the schools? In the educational system, children should be taught not to be violent. But then there is what some of you civil society leaders qualify as the reign of impunity. There are also issues about the absence of safe spaces for women. What about all these issues?
When it has been normalized that if a woman leaves her marriage, that means she is a failure, women will endure this violence and they will remain quiet. Also, because they are afraid of being laughed at or being looked upon like suffering people in marriage, or they want to paint a picture of a happy marriage, they tend to endure all of this. And also because they do not know where to go to. It's a major problem. It's not just about telling your neighbor that I am facing this problem here, I am going through this. It is, where are you going to go with this problem? So sometimes when they sit and they think about it, they say, no, I don't even have a place to go to. I'm going through this. I cannot run back to my family. I cannot share it with my friends. So instead of telling people to make myself a laughing stock, I would prefer to keep it to myself. And because of that, they tend to endure a lot. And once you've endured one violent situation and you've kept quiet, the second one will come, the third one will come, and it will keep aggravating until it will reach a level that it can lead to murder.
Right, and you've engaged a campaign against rising violence against women in Cameroon within the context of the forthcoming 2026 Pan-African Women's Day. You were at the governor's office, at the office of the governor of the Littoral region today to present to him some of the proposals that you're making in view of bringing down the violence curve in Cameroon. Tell us about some of the proposals that you took to the governor today.
Some of the necessary points that we presented to the governor this morning, it included a training session for police and gendarmes, which was we're calling for an implementation of a systematic mandatory training for all police officers and gendarmes in the littoral region, covering gender-based violence recognition, survival center interviewing, legal frameworks for prosecution, and proper referral to medical, psychological, and legal services. To develop a curriculum, civil society trainers, and with the United Nations, delivering refresher modules every 6 months. And another point that we presented to them was the functional gender desk. We do know that a gender desk already exists, but it is not in full action.
Did you also talk to the governor about the issue of a toll-free line that should be made available for women to report and report in a manner that they are safe to do so?
And the other points which we presented to the governor this morning included the need for a hotline, as we have earlier spoken about, the need for the hotline so that people in incidents, people experiencing violence, they can have a free toll number, they can call, and it should be operational 24/7. With this, it can also help us to be able to do a lot of monitoring and evaluation, to be able to count and know actual figures that are happening, because we have figures of people who have experienced violence, but we do not have free figures because not everybody had that opportunity to share the information. The information did not go viral on social media, and people did not have a contact they could call, and it could not be traced.
Right, let's wrap up with this. Violence is not an option. I've heard a lot of you saying this, but we still have people who think that violence can be a solution. In some contexts, violence can resolve some problems. What do you say about this?
Against violence, you cannot completely isolate a particular group of people to fight against violence for them, but if you succeed in fighting against violence for a certain group of people, it will normally seep into other different age groups and genders. And in Cameroon, this particular year, we can see that there has been a spike in infanticide, which is a very sad scenario. We've heard a lot of situations of our children are being molested, and this violence is mainly carried out by adults. So that is why we are focusing this training primarily first to the adults. We need a mental shift, we need a mental change. Protecting women, by the time we succeed in creating safe space for women, we have indirectly created a safe space for children, because a woman who is capable of protecting herself is capable of protecting her children. A woman who is capable of identifying violence, a woman who is capable of avoiding violence will ensure that her children do not experience that violence.
Right, and now let's wrap up with the issue of violence still being considered by some people as an option in some circumstances to solve some problems.
Violence is not an option, and violence can never be justified. Once you have chosen to go the violent way, there is no justification for violence, whether to your neighbor, whether to yourself, whether to your wife, whether to your children. There is no justification. Everybody has a choice, and you choosing violence is your personal choice, and it is not justifiable, and it is not accepted at any level, no matter how minimal that violence is.
Thank you very much for making our time to have this conversation with us today. That's it for today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast over Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for staying with us. God bless Cameroon. God bless Africa. Goodbye.